recording. We'll just rock and roll if that's all right with you.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
Yeah.
Oh, you're spilling your tea already, Al.
I know.
Let's get that cleaned up.
There you go.
You're the second clinical psychologist I've had in today.
All right.
My head's hurting already.
Did you have a web? You done one this morning?
Yeah.
Ah.
Dr. Karen Knight.
Oh,
sorry, she told me off. Dr. Karen.
Oh, right. Karen.
K-A-A-R-E-N. Yeah, it was awesome.
Very good.
You guys are complicated, you psychologists.
All right. Psychotherapist.
Psychotherapist, sorry, yeah.
It.
She's
No,
a clinical psychologist.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You're a
psychotherapist.
Psychotherapist.
Yeah.
But we were debating whether you have to be nuts to get into that profession.
Well,
I said yeah.
Yeah, if you're not, it's sort of, you go on that journey in the job.
Yeah, but it's good to see you, man.
And you, lovely to see you.
Come close to the mic.
Okay.
Like I say, you're looking dapper, Al.
Thank you, sir.
Feel a bit underdressed.
So you've been bulking up?
You reckon?
Yeah, you look well.
I'm about 86. Yeah, I guess I'm about half a stone heavier.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's your goal?
Well, I mean, my goal is to get as strong as I can at the minute. I'm injured quite a lot in a lot of different ways. So I'm doing what I can. So I can do a lot of heavy leg lifting, a lot of chin-ups and stuff like that. That's all I can do. So I can't do BJJ at the minute, which is like my wrestling.
Right.
And I can't do any like chest work and stuff like that.
Right.
Got a lot of shoulder issues.
So are you overtraining? I know I'm not questioning you.
No, when I started BJJ, I was getting thrown about a lot.
Right.
By guys younger than me to get thrown about at 38, and so I don't know if you know much about BJJ.
No.
But the idea is that you tap out the person you're wrestling with. So
Right.
if me and you were having a bit of a fight, I'd either try and strangle you, or I'd break your arm,
Yeah.
or I'd put you in an ankle lock. And
Lovely.
I know that's the idea of the game. So you're fighting for your life every session. So it's quite hard work.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Very mindful, isn't it? You're very in the moment. I was talking to kickboxer a few years back. He was, won't say too much, but he was telling me that he'd read about mindfulness because of his anxiety and that, and then he said he didn't realise just how mindful doing something like that is, because you have to be in the moment. You can't be thinking about what you got for lunch.
So true. Yeah, I'm wondering whether all these books are doing me any good. I'll diving deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, when do you stop chasing the thirst for knowledge?
Yeah.
You're trying to work out why we behave, how we do, and you read books on happiness, and you're like, am I actually I'm helping myself here, or am I hindering myself?
Yeah.
Should I go and do more things like BJJ? 'Cause pretty happy. Sounds crazy, right? I'm getting strangled, but I'm like, it's quite a happy time in my life.
Yeah.
Weird, isn't it?
And it is weird. I wonder if it is because it's mindful, because you're in the moment.
Sure.
So you're not thinking about worrying about paying your bills, or worrying about tomorrow and the day after.
I said to Karen, I said, it's weird. I said, there's so much data out there that says, like flow is really good for you when you're not thinking, when you're doing, and you're, like you say, and time evaporates and you're in the moment. And 2, relationships, they add so much fulfillment to your life. So I said to Karen, I said, why don't we just pursue those things? Why are we chasing things that we kind of know? We know are not like that important. Like we get so busy, man. Like trying to build businesses and be successful in the career. Yeah. Like the data's there. It says fulfilling relationships are the thing that make you happy in life. Yeah. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Let me just get my jacket off.
Yeah, sure. It's hot in there, isn't it? Yeah. Just watch that camera behind you, Al.
Okay. So.
Come right, something like yeah, it's roasting in there.
Yeah. So I mean, in the work we read, I think I've got I've got the whole well-being agenda. We've got to be really careful with it, Al, because the very act of looking at something changes it. Is it Heisenberg's theory, when they're trying to look at the atom and they couldn't pin it down. So and it's a little bit like that with our thoughts. The very act of looking at a thought changes thoughts. So the more we analyse ourselves, are we going deeper into the dark side rather than into the light side? Because the brain is naturally, and this is something I've been thinking about in my own life. I think the brain is, we know the brain's default setting is not good. It's about threat and loss. Mm-hmm. So everything that the frontal cortex does, the happiness bit, we get taken back. So if the brain's default setting is threat and loss, and we keep analysing and thinking, we would naturally have to go to some of the darker side of life. So you're absolutely right. Is it a good thing to keep reading and studying and looking for the answers when the dopamine chase is the ultimate thing that we do.
Is that not the skill though, to be able to integrate some of that darkness into some form of positivity or some form of healthy outcome? Like, are there not people who skilled at that? They take the dark sides, the dark thoughts that they have, and they turn it into a creative project. Like, are we best looking at it so that we can utilize it, or are we best spending most of our time doing so that we don't have to look?
Yeah, well, old Carl Jung would say you have to integrate it, otherwise you do bad things. So the very so you've got to make the unconscious conscious before you can change it. So I think you do have to explore, but I think there's a time where you rein it in as well, and go very behavioural and start setting goals like you're doing, which is why you're enjoying it.
I think so, but I think I've become more analytical as I've got older.
Yeah.
Which again, I kind of look back now and I'm like, if we were doing a happiness rating, probably was happier when I was doing more than I am analysing more.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I was talking to engineers about this years ago at Jaguar Land Rover, and we were talking about psychotherapy, psychology, analysing thoughts, behaviours. And the one engineer said to him, this is a bright PhD guy, this wasn't, and he said it's weird that is, Alan. He said, because our engineering model goes against your psychology model. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we look for cause and effect. We look for what causes this. And a lot of the engineers struggle with loss, because when they lose somebody, whether it's a divorce or a very sad loss, the brains will go naturally into problem solving, which will be, why did that happen? Could I have done something different? Could I have saved my marriage? I wonder, it was my fault. I could have done this 10 years ago. And they just analyse because they're looking for the cause. Now, in our work, there is no cause, which we have to come to terms with that very quickly. We look at maintenance factors. So if somebody's depressed, I'm looking at what's maintaining their depression. I'm not looking at what caused it. We could hazard a guess and say they've just had a major loss, a parent, but it could be lots of other things. Okay. Not everybody gets depressed when they lose a parent, so you can't just say 1 and 1 equals 2 in our work.
But wouldn't that be a smart thing to do, to look back and go, okay, my wife's left me, like, what could I have done maybe to save the marriage?
Yeah.
So that we can predict maybe the same patterns coming up again, and if we want to change them, don't we need to do a certain amount of reflection to change? So isn't that a healthy thing, trying to look for cause?
Yeah, it's a good point. And I guess when we talk about reflective practice, you use it with a framework. You don't just go diving into the pit, pulling, it's like a ball pit. You're diving in, throwing all the balls in the air, looking for something. We would say you actively reflect, maybe with a good friend. Single men living alone is not good, because they climb into that ball pit. And you tend to find what you're looking for. You get confirmation bias. So I guess that's where therapy comes in, to be honest. And that's why therapy's hard work.
But therapy's talking and analysing too, right?
Yeah, in a structured way. It should be in a structured way. And it can hurt, but you should be psychologically safe. Whereas when you're sitting on your own with your thoughts, are you psychologically safe?
I don't know. Well, we've jumped straight in, haven't we?
Yeah.
8 minutes, 40 seconds in, and we're already on the deep stuff. Why did you particularly mention single men on their own?
It's something I've experienced. I've worked in psychiatry for, psychology, whatever, 36 years now. So I think any single man would know that they're vulnerable. Most single men. There's some who say, I'm fine, I'm enjoying life, and that's great because they're very busy and they're very active. But there's a lot of men will know that they're vulnerable when they're dead really honest with themselves.
Okay.
Because you can't sit with your thoughts for too long. You've got to, and so when you do, if you're active and you're out there yourself and things, then you're okay generally. But what about that period of time when you're low and you're not out there and you're not active? That's what we call the maintenance factor. That's when you stop seeing your friends. That's when you start cracking open the odd bottle of vodka. That's when you start watching Netflix. That's when you think, do you know what, I'm not going out tonight, I'm tired. And that's when it's the slow sort of dip into the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I think most people will be able to relate to that. It's interesting you say that. Like I said to Karen, I said, traditionally every maybe 6 months I have a couple of weeks where I'm like really not feeling good, and the first thing I want to do is stop seeing friends and family. It's the first thing I want to do. And like you say, you have to replace that time with something. So you end up watching more TV. Yeah. You end up scrolling your phone more and stuff like that. So you just moved in on your own, right?
Yeah. Last week. So
cool.
yeah.
How are you finding that experience?
Yeah, it's good. I've moved back to the city, nearer to my daughter and that, for the very same reason as what we're talking about. So I was out, in a lovely village, all nice. And I think if I was in an intimate relationship, that would have been a good place for me. But I wasn't. So when the pandemic hit, it just made me realise that I'm not growing up here on my own. I'm not growing old here on my own. And I'm a very much a social person. So even sitting in a cafe bar, for me, with my laptop, people are around me, I can hear voices, I can hear noise, and it boosts my mood.
Yeah, I get that. I do exactly the same thing for exactly the same reason. Yeah. You don't mind me asking how old you are, do you?
No, 58 last week. Oh, no, this week, Tuesday.
Of course.
Monday.
I missed your birthday by a day.
That's all right.
That's one thing Facebook is good for. It flags up.
Yeah.
It's like, it was old Dovey's birthday yesterday. I was like, oh, thanks for reminding me. Yeah, how do you find like single life as a 58-year-old? So I'm 38, single, live on my own. It comes with its challenges, right?
Yeah.
Like you must face similar ones too.
Yeah, I think we all do. If we were savagely honest, as we talked about.
We love that word.
Yeah, I love that word.
Yeah.
If we're savagely honest, there's some really pretty dark times for everybody, and I've just been reading actually about men and intimacy. It's really interesting because we talk about, if you use the word intimacy and you think of movies, people naturally move towards, and I'm not being genderising here at all, but people think, female intimate, buy a nice bracelet or some flowers or a nice meal, but you don't link intimacy with the male. Uh-huh. And yet we know beyond the level of a doubt that men need intimacy. But without it, you're sort of lost, because it was an intimate partner. You have the ultimate trust. So I guess it's the intimacy. If you said to me, what word should a single man just make sure that they've got around them? Just a bit of intimacy. And it doesn't have to be with a relationship. It could be with family, can be with friends. You've got that group that you see. At some point, you'll be intimate.
What does intimacy mean when it's in a non-sexual frame?
Yeah, it just means close and it's about trust.
Right.
Trust and safety. That's what I've read, and it's about trust, which is why people have fear of intimacy, because in order to be intimate, you got to have trust, and in order to have trust, you have to open yourself out to potentially be hurt.
For sure, yeah. There's an element of being able to trust yourself too. In this situation, I remember Jeff always used to say to me, you can't really give something that you haven't got. So if you've got the inability to trust yourself, there's no person on the planet that will come into your life that you can trust. Yeah, it's weird in a non-intimate sexual relationship. Like I find it much easier to trust, like my band of brothers, for example, than I would in an intimate relationship with a female. Yeah,
and there lies the issue, doesn't it? Because your brain will measure that, and. What does Peterson talk? He talks about, if I said to you now, do you want tea or coffee? The brain, would you decide that based on how much you want coffee or how much you don't want tea?
Well, that would be easy for me. I don't like coffee.
Right. So your brain makes that decision. You don't like coffee, so you'll have tea. So it wouldn't make necessarily the decision on how much you want tea. And it's the same with intimacy. So you have to ask yourself, what is my life like without intimacy, and explore that, and then that will help motivate you to get intimacy. So it's risk management. If you don't want to take that risk, so if you don't want to take the risk of being open and raw to somebody, then as long as your life's okay, you probably won't take that risk. So it comes back to the mental health side. Sometimes we have to get ill or very lonely before we open up. So it's why the well-being side sometimes sort of, I think, we have to go there sometimes, to the dark side.
Yeah, this is why I always wonder whether like being okay is a good thing. Like, and again, I don't want to encourage extremes, but like, yeah, being like having a breakdown for me was the best thing that happened, because it was the thing that push me towards growth and development. But like, we've only got 80, 90 years on this planet. So like, there's some things that you can't wait. Like, you don't want to be 70 and have a realization that, oh fuck, I'm lonely as fuck and I'm going to die in the next 5 years. Because I mean, what a painful lesson that is. And that happens, by the way. I sat opposite a guy and he was like, his dad was on his deathbed and he was like, listen son, I've never been able to love in my life, like, and I'm only just seeing it now. And you don't want those lessons on your deathbed. You kind of need to almost put yourself in a place of education and openness. And I think you can do some optional suffering. What I was just talking to you about, the retreat I went on, it is a bit of that. It's an optional suffering.
Tell me about that.
So this was something called Wild Rites. I don't know if you heard of Soulcraft, Bill Plotkin. So basically it's an 11-day retreat. You spend the first 3 or 4 days with your community. So there was about 12 of us, I think. So we would eat together. We would do like a circle in the morning and have talks. But then you would go off on your own into the forest for 4 days and 4 nights. No contact. You wouldn't wonder about. You just sit. No food. The only thing you could have is water. After the 4 days, 4 nights were up, you'd go back to your community. So you kind of been through that optional suffering. You come back and then you share your stories. But it was interesting now because, like you say, all those thoughts that you talk about that we kind of need to be careful. Like, you didn't have an option but to look at them. You couldn't reach for your phone. You couldn't go to the gym. You couldn't eat Haagen-Dazs ice cream.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So what, do you mind me asking where your thoughts went? Did you go to the bright side or middle ground, or more over to the...
I'd say it went from more of a dark side to a bit more of an enlightening side. So again, I was taught everything that we're speaking about, what's important. You know, and it was the people in my life. Like I say, I had this real slap around the face. I've kind of never really been in a loving relationship at 38. Which again sucks, man. I haven't got kids. I haven't got a close partner. I've only got my mum and my dad, who live 45 minutes away, and I've got a sister who lives 90 minutes away. No cousins, no aunties, no uncles. It's fucking small. You know, and then you have a look at your social circle from years ago. That's a lot smaller. All of a sudden, your world's quite small. So I was kind of like shown that, like, you've got to be able to open your heart up to some things in your life. So, you know, I went round my mum and dad's and told them that I loved them after the retreat. But then to bring that back into this world is quite difficult because you get caught. I got caught straight back into the rat race pretty much. Got busy on my business again, and then you kind of forget. Oh shit! And the guy who ran the retreat said it will be harder to betray yourself when you've been shown these lessons. To betray your soul, you know. So if you know relationships are number one and intimacy is number one, and you go against that, it will cause you even more pain than it did before.
That's good.
It is good, but it means you can't live a lie, really. Because it's easy to live a lie.
Which comes back to that dark shadow about once you've opened the unconscious to the conscious, you've got to deal with it.
Sure.
You've got to deal with it.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at.
Right.
It's probably the most depressed I've felt in about 6 months, definitely.
Yeah. That's really... Do you know what you did from a cognitive perspective, that 4 days? That's really hard. That's really hard. You know.
I didn't see it like that, man.
No.
I just did it.
Yeah.
But I like challenge.
Yeah.
I always find if life's boring, you get lazy.
Yeah. Comfortable's not a good place to be. In the Stoics, they didn't like the word comfortable.
No. All my bad habits and traits come out when I'm bored.
Yeah.
I'll find problems out.
Yeah. Okay. So you talked about something interesting. I hope you don't mind, but you're talking about your world getting smaller.
Yeah.
And I can relate to that on a personal level.
Sure.
And I think the you know, to all the guys out there, really, the reason intimacy is really important is because as you lose intimacy with the people that love you, so your parents, then if you've got nothing to replace that with, then that can take you to a very dark place, a very bad place. So I know that when my mum passed 2016, I won't say she's the only woman who ever loved me unconditionally because I get slapped, but and my daughter loves me unconditionally, but when you lose somebody who loves you unconditionally, then you've got nobody to fall back on. That's when you sort of, as a man, that's when you can slip and slide. So I guess I'm not warning you or anything, but I guess you've got that love from your parents.
Yeah, but that's not going to be around forever, right?
No.
And I think you are right, and so you might take a slap for this, so might I, but I think your mother is the only person that ever loves you unconditionally. I
was thinking about that today because I thought, you know what, I'm going to mention this and I'm going to get into trouble. But I actually think they do love you unconditionally, and I actually think Well, you can't really have an unconditional relationship with your partner, because you can't just realistically say, well, you love me unconditionally, I'm going to go out with my mates now and get pissed and I'm going to sleep around because you love me unconditionally, because it doesn't work that way. So I don't even know if an unconditional relationship does exist apart from your mother, you know, and maybe daughter, and maybe that, because that's a blood bond.
Okay. So just define unconditional for me. Would that in simple terms mean I could do anything and my mother would still love me?
So
Like,
yeah,
I believe that to be true.
Yeah, and you see it, don't you, when people do bad things and it breaks them, but you can not accept somebody's behaviour, but you can still love them. You know, so you know, your mother would say that's unacceptable what you've done, but in their heart, that love that's bonded over the, you know, John Bowlby attachment theory, that attachment can't just be broken. And I don't know whether we should really even build attachments like that in normal relationships. I don't know.
I don't think it is healthy, for sure. I know the one thing is that when you become attached to somebody who loves you and you are dependent on them for your happiness, that's when all that control comes in, man. That's when all that, like, don't leave me syndrome comes in. You get real clingy.
Yeah.
Like, paranoid all the time in case that woman's going to leave you. It's not healthy, man. Yeah. It's got to be, surely there's got to be work on the self here, where you get to the point where you're comfortable with yourself and in your own skin. Surely. I know we need intimacy. And by the way, that intimacy thing, doesn't that mean into me see? So,
wow.
I think this is where intimacy comes from. Right. It means that the relationship will teach me about myself. Right. That's what I believed intimacy was. So in being in a relationship, you are my teacher and you are my mirror. You would teach me everything I need to know about myself. That's kind of what I believed intimacy was about.
Okay. So you can't, it is. And I guess that it's just, I've been thinking about this for years, about it, thinking what is it that you search for? Are you really happier on your own and you just bullshit yourself? Because society says, you know, you need somebody to go to the pictures with.
Well, what do you think?
Don't know. I'll be honest with you. I have moments of what I would call loneliness, but I don't know if a relationship would have to replace that. I think maybe like what you do, you get off your arse and you do things.
But I'd swap it all for an intimate relationship.
Right.
Simple answer for me.
Right.
Kids.
Yeah. Kids. I get that. I do get that.
Of course, you got to have reasons. This is why I think religion comes in as well. Like, you've got to have things bigger than the self.
Yeah.
Don't you? Because it gets boring after a while.
Yeah. Yeah, Peterson talks about you've got to carry more and more responsibility as you get older, because without any responsibility, you won't be here. And yet, what do we do in the Western world? We try and get rid of our responsibility as we get older.
For sure.
Until we've got no responsibility, we clear our mortgages, we do everything, and people go, I've got no responsibility now, and then they sit there and they die.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you see young men with a lack of responsibility all over the place, playing computer games, not stepping up to the plate, not taking, like I say, enough on their shoulders, I believe. I know one thing about me, Ali, is if I have to step up, I will.
Yeah.
You know, if I've got a kid to feed.
Yeah.
I'll work at Starbucks.
Yeah.
But I'm not doing it for myself.
Yeah.
So it kind of like, I think responsibility pushes you to become a better version.
Yeah.
Or a stronger version. Or it can certainly get, like, the guys who collect my bins in the morning, man, they're there every morning, the fucking rain. 4:30, I think they start.
Yeah.
Like, do you think they really kind of sat there as a school kid and went, I want to be somebody who collects waste?
Yeah.
I bet they do it because they've got, like, people to feed, they've got kids, they've got mortgage to pay. So I just think that responsibility can be a good thing. And you're right, I think we do try and shed it.
Yeah. And I did, so you think, right, daughter's got a chap now, he's a nice guy, grandson's doing well, that's pack that one up, and that's gone, and you start to get rid of it all, and you have a dream that the world will feel lighter, and you'll have all this heaviness gone, and then the heaviness comes back even more, because you sit there thinking, what's it all about?
Yeah.
So I do think we have to take the unconscious, back to your first question, isn't it? I do think we have to take the unconscious conscious, and in order to do that, you have to explore some darker sides.
Mm-hmm. But you're saying it's the way that you do it is important, right?
Really,
so you do it with a bottle of Jack Daniels on your own at home on a Saturday night. You're in trouble, mate. Yeah. But you do it in a therapy session or with a good friend, or you go outside and do it in nature, and you might have a different experience.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then it's taking that information and what do you call it? Bringing it into consciousness.
Bringing it from the unconscious to the conscious. And Jung was right with that. That's what nearly all therapy is targeted at that. So cognitive behavioural work does it by exploring behaviours and checking out what the thoughts are, so maybe a behavioural experiment, what went through your mind when you were in that shop. And then the person doesn't normally think about that, but they'll say, oh, I thought people were looking at me. So suddenly the unconscious thoughts are coming to the surface. Psychodynamic therapy does it, but the more accessible to the unconscious first, and then brings it forward. So exploratory techniques, psychoanalytical even more so on that way. So different approaches generally still pull the unconscious to the conscious.
So if you sit there and highlight, so if you kind of look out into the world now, Al, and say, I think intimacy is a problem for a lot of men.
Yeah.
Do you just sit with that thought, or do you then instantly be directed towards, and how can I make a difference for all those men struggling with intimacy?
Yeah, I think, and again, Peterson talks on this, but I think you've got to be willing. You've got to pick your sacrifice. There is no way around it. And even on my own level, I haven't picked my sacrifice. So I'm, how far? Yeah, so I don't mind saying, I can have some pretty dark nights, when you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, I don't want to work. I've got to stop, you can't keep working just because, and if you enjoy work, which I do, but you think there's got to be something else. But then you start to feel lonely. You start to sort of think, oh, I'll just crack a drink and watch a movie. So how much in pain do you have to be before you make that sacrifice? And I guess from my perspective, I probably haven't been in enough pain. But is that what we really have to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I haven't come across any transformation or any inspirational change or anyone that's done super well without that pain point. I just haven't come across it yet.
Yeah.
Don't know if it exists, Al.
Yeah. And I think, and again, I knew I was coming on here today, and I've been doing some sort of reading, reflecting, and I think this is a whole thing about men and mental health, and the great, the work you're doing is that we've got to look at the paradox of it all. We've got to say, yes, men do need to talk, but people have got to want to listen, and let's be quite frank about it. Not a lot of people want to listen.
Well, why is that?
I think
how can you get two guys so different? So me and you were just kind of like so desperate to learn and make a change, right? And you can see the suffering out there, and you kind of know inside yourself something ain't right at the minute. In me, in the energy in people. Like, how can you turn a blind eye to that? Like, is that the world we live in now, where like distractions are so at the forefront of everything we do that people even, you said about the unconscious, is it all unconscious now? Do people even know what's happening? Do people know they're unhappy? Do people know they're miserable? Do people know that they can't have intimate relationships? Do we know this stuff, or is this all like some kind of buried secret within us?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, the sociologists are talking about the time of individualism. So they're saying that it's all about the individual at the moment, which isn't good. It's we're trying to make it more about communities, but it's become more about the individual. Social media is all about the individual.
I'd agree with that. Would you?
Yeah. But, it's all about me. And that doesn't mean they're being horrible or anything. It just means that even at schools you've been taught, stand up for yourself. You can do this. You can achieve whatever you want. No, you can't actually achieve whatever you want. Because then if you think that, you become entitled. You cannot achieve everything you want. We all know that. So even the sort of upbringing of this is individualism. And it's nice to think, I'm an individual and I can stand my own ground. But then what happens later on in life? When nobody wants to listen to you. So I think there is a thing about men talking, but I don't mind quoting, West Midlands Fire Service, one of the greatest organisations I've ever worked with. 21 years ago, probably firefighters wouldn't come springing into my room to want to talk. 21 years later, these guys get it. They understand the importance of not sitting there with thoughts, and some of the things they see isn't, not very nice at all. They want to, debrief. They were looking after their mental health. We've come such a long way. But there's got to be people wanting to listen, and sometimes, people still expect a man to be the old alpha male. there's still that expectation out there. My brother was at a gym actually this couple of weeks ago, and he was telling me he was at the gym and they were in a sauna, and some guy said, "Oh yeah, you've gone through loss," and he was saying, "I've been really tearful and all that." And this lady said, "Men shouldn't cry." And my brother said, "I just thought of your words, Al." And he said, "But I didn't engage it." But I said, "But there are people out there who still think men shouldn't cry." And even if it's unconscious, they might not consciously. They might say, "Yeah, I want people to express their emotion." Unconsciously, we still want that hard guy who's not going to cry, who's going to step up to the mark.
How do you change like a societal, or I think they call it like is it collective subconscious?
Yeah.
How do you change that then? Because I was using an example earlier of like, I'm all for guys talking about their feelings and being vulnerable, but when I see a guy break down and cry and cry and cry in front of me, there is a little voice nagging in the background that goes, "Mate, get a fucking grip." You know what I mean? Fucking hell. There is.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to deny it's there.
Yeah.
And I speak to myself like that too.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's helpful because it does get me moving again, and sometimes it can be really harmful because I'm not allowing myself the freedom and to do those things. But I'm wondering if we're ever going to win now. Like, I find this difficulty in relationships too. I've been told over and over again that my masculine traits are what the women that are with me, they really like that about me. You know, like I say, I get shit done. I'm stand up. I go out. I work hard. I'm driven. I'm ambitious. I like to be the protector. I do like to play that role. And it's something they like, but they also do want the open and emotionally available side. Yeah. But when you show a lot of that to a woman or to anyone, there's only so much people can tolerate of that. Yeah. Before they go, "Fucking hell, just get on with it, will you?" Yeah. And I always find it's a real sweet science to be able to kind of spin all those plates at once. I find the showing vulnerability thing really difficult, and I don't think it's as well received as we encourage it to be. Yeah. So we can say it all day long, but I think when you do it, there is an element of us that kind of doesn't want that in people. We want strong people, and I don't know which of this is right or wrong, by the way. I'm just kind of throwing out a load of shit in my head. Yeah. It's like, well, which is the right one? Is it to be that tough guy who does crack on with life because life's fucking hard, get used to it? Or do you be the guy who is open and vulnerable? Or do you sit right in the middle?
Yeah,
can you sit in the middle?
Well, I think old Paul Bloom would call it the sweet spot, wouldn't he? And I'm not sure where that is, Al. And
is that idealistic?
It probably is, isn't it?
I don't know. Is it realistic? You know, are there guys out there who can sit bang in the middle? Yeah. Openly, emotionally available, vulnerable, but tough as nails and get shit done when it needs? Are there people that are like that? I don't know. Or are we, like Robert Greene would suggest, you know, our brains are hardwired. We've got a certain DNA in us. This is who we are. This is who we're going to be. Yeah. We can't change that. In fact, I think it was you that said that course of therapy for psychopaths, right? Yeah. 3 sessions a week, 3 years. Yeah. Didn't change one thing about it.
No, it's difficult, isn't it? So what you're saying is we're working against evolution a bit. But evolution, by the very nature, evolves. Mm-hmm. So I think it takes generations. So where we are now is a lot better than where the Victorians were.
In what way?
In the way that we get it, we're just not able to get our heads around it yet.
What do you think we get then?
I think we get the fact that you've got to express emotion. You can't suppress. I think people are starting to understand that. You suppress cortisol and adrenaline. And what does Hans Sale in 1957, the pioneer of stress, he said, what goes in must come out. They didn't get him at the time, and the medical profession struggle with stress because it's hormones, it's not measurable. But he was trying to say, look, you know, the body keeps a score.
Great book.
So we've got to sort of trauma. They're looking at the vagal nerve for trauma because it's the nerve that goes from your bottom of your brain through to every organ. And what they're saying is it's a two-way road, so the organs talk to the brain as much as they say it's around about 85% of communication on the vagal nerve goes from the organ to the brain, the organs to the brain, 15% goes from the brain to the organs, so the body tells the brain a lot more than the brain tells the body. Mm-hmm. So that's why trauma is saved in the body.
Okay, and probably why the somatic therapy is taken off as well. Yeah,
and why yoga and things like that. 2,500 years ago, somebody developed yoga, and it actually really good for the vagal nerve.
Okay, let me push back a bit on this. Yeah. We should express our emotions all the time, sometimes. Yeah. In an appropriate environment. Like, what's the answer to that?
It's really hard. I mean, a bit of me thinks no, you shouldn't have to go for therapy to express your emotion. But if it's that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
And it's why social circles, social networks are so important. How much you do it, you know.
You can't do it all the time,
No,
right?
you
Like, because
can't.
if I'm angry, everyone knows I'm angry. I'm going to show it. Heart on my sleeve kind of guy. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
pissed off. You're going to know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what a weak character that is if I can't control my emotions.
Yeah.
This is what we're taught, right?
Yeah.
Learn how to control your
Control.
emotions.
Yeah.
So, well, what's the difference between controlling your emotions and showing them? How do you
Yeah.
show them in a tactile way
Yeah.
versus suppressing? That's what I mean. It's all, we keep using the word paradoxical,
Yeah.
but it's both, right?
Yeah.
You've got to be a guy who can show his emotions, but you've got to be a guy who can control them too.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're being controlled by your emotions.
So that two-way road and that balance, it's body to the brain again, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How much does the frontal cortex suppress? It says to the back part of the brain, I'm not going to show emotion, I'm going to suppress it. Okay, because I'm in the middle of a factory and this is not the place to cry. So the person sits there on the factory thinking, you know, I've just lost my dad, but this is not the place to cry. But when he goes home, he should have a place to cry.
Uh-huh.
I remember when my mum was really ill, I'd be in my clinics and I'd just sit there thinking, I've got to have a good cry in a minute, you know. So I used to drive up to somewhere by Lichfield. My mate Paul takes a piss, actually, because he found a towel in my car and he said, what's the towel for? And I said, because I'm running out of tissues. So I would just put a little bit of a sad song on and get the shit out of my body, really. But you can feel it. You just feel it coming up. So I think people need to learn to read their bodies, and men aren't good at that.
And it weird. Do you ever find yourself fighting it even when you're on your own? You know, when the tears come up.
Yeah.
Even when you're on your own with no one watching, do you find like it's just a natural instinct to try and push them down? Like you let a bit of tears come down your face, but there's part of you that just fucking go back.
Yeah. And I think that's natural evolutionary. I'm good at letting it out. But I practiced it. I practiced for years, literally give myself some negative thoughts. If I feel it coming up, I'll have the saddest thoughts I can, because I want it out of my system. But then I have practiced that, and I think genetically I'm not that alpha male on a total genetic level. So you look at people who go into certain jobs. There's certain jobs they do because they can suppress their emotion. You don't want a firefighter running around crying, trying to put a fire out in a building, or an RTA cutting somebody out of a car, thinking, "Oh my God." A police officer, you don't want a police officer on the streets, you know, really angry, so they suppress, and that's their natural stance. But every now and again, that's why they're vulnerable people as well, and research would show that people who suppress innately, they're the ones that can do some risk behaviour.
Yeah, but again, I guess that there's an element of suppression that is inevitable. Like you say, to hold down a job, you have to be able to suppress.
Yeah.
I guess the key would be then, well, where do you deal with these? Because like they said, that makes sense. If you go home and you're putting on the face for the wife and the kids, and then it's all of a sudden it's bedtime, and then you've got to get up and do your job again. It's like, oh, I haven't let any of this stuff out. So I get how after years and years and years that can build into huge depression or trauma or problems. So I guess the question would be then, where do those guys actually get to unleash some of their emotions in a healthy way? Training for me always number one here.
Right.
Because on a physiological level, that's one of the best things you can do, right?
100%.
If I'm angry, what a useful way to utilise it. Rather than bite my girlfriend's head off, maybe I can go and tear those weights up.
Yeah.
And this should be another thing. Do we suppress anger, or do we just learn how to use it?
Yeah, I've always thought, I have people referred to me for anger management. It makes me smile, really. And all they did was express they were pissed off. They haven't got anger issues. And I think anger is a really positive emotion. It's just what we do with it. It's energy, it's heightened anxiety on a biological level. So you're in fight or flight, but a bit higher. Usually it's because, and again, you want to get a point across.
Yeah, but I guess it's teaching young men then. So you see it all over the internet sometimes. People at universities having these, disrupting lectures and going crazy.
Yeah.
And for me, that's a sign of someone who hasn't got control of their emotions.
Yeah.
They're just letting it all out. And for me, it seems quite weak.
That's interesting.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas the man who's in control is the powerful one. The one who's, cool, calm and collected, but can get his point across. He knows what he's feeling. He's intellectual. He's at a physical level too. But there's an element of predictability about him. He's not going to fly off the fucking handle.
Yeah.
Because if you think in sport, like when boxers go face to face, they try and get each other's emotions heightened. They try and get into their skin.
Yeah, you're right.
They try and wind each other up. They try and piss each other off, right?
Yeah.
Because they know that when they're emotional, they might make a mistake.
Yeah.
Whereas the cool fighter, like a Canelo, I don't know if you're into your boxing. No. He's got rattled a few times, but or a Floyd Mayweather, cool, calm, collected, whatever. Boom, goes in the ring, does the business. Yeah. No emotion involved. So there's kind of downsides.
No, it's a really good paradox. Again, it is all that sweet spot. Is it so you? Okay, so what you're saying is, and I agree with you, but you're saying there is a time to suppress and there is a time to take the cap off. Because my argument would be, yes, those people are a lot much calmer and they are cooler in life, and they're you know the chimp paradox. Yeah. They're human, can tell the chimp to shut up and quieten down and calm down, and they're very cognitively very powerful.
Sure.
So they're usually quite cognizant of how they're feeling and everything. The other person, but those people frighten me. They worry me because when they go big time. Mm. You know, and that's why people say, don't they? I never thought, you know.
But do they though, or do they go in the gym every hour? So if you think of it like a stress tank, do they not use that hour to pour some of the stress out, tops up a little bit throughout the day, they pour it out?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering, whether people have this nice kind of, almost like this homeostasis level of just kind of being quite balanced, you know, where they are capable of flipping, but they're also very calm. And because they manage both, they kind of stay somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. But okay, so then, let's carry on. So then, wouldn't everybody be okay if they just went to the gym?
Well, I think everybody would be better.
Yeah.
For sure.
But
imagine if everybody went to the gym.
Yeah.
Imagine if everybody was fit and healthy. You're telling me like we wouldn't be in a more sane world?
Massively.
Definitely.
Yeah. But we would. I see a lot of people who go to the gym.
I'm sure you do, right?
Which is what I'm sort of saying. Yeah.
I'm sure you do. Like anything, right? Like you might get take everyone who's in great shape. 80% of those people, it might be for healthy reasons, and they've got 20%. It might be as to cover up something else. It might, whatever it is. But what I think is, it's definitely a contributing factor to helping a guy to be able to deal with his man, and a physiological level too. 100%. We're talking like hormone balance and just energy and state. The gym is something incredible.
Yeah, 100%.
That you can do. But it is those guys who have got this ability, like I say. So if you take that stress that we're talking about and that ability to express, like let's say you did an hour of writing every day and that was your time just to let all the boundaries down, to spill everything that was in your heart onto the page when you're scared, when you're like, for me, that's a healthy way that you don't suppress.
Brilliant.
But you can't do that at work because you've got a job to hold down. Like, imagine you bawling your eyes out in front of a client.
Yeah.
Imagine me coming to see you for help, Hal.
Yeah.
And you crying your eyes out because I'll be like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be healthy. Do you know what I mean? So you can't. You have to suppress.
Yeah.
You have to suppress.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So it's
just
good.
Come to this mic.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So we have to suppress and we have to express.
Yes.
Yeah. So. And there's people that do this naturally, unconsciously every day. So, like you said, but there's people that suppress too much, and there's people that express too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can exercise? And I'm asking you this. I need to. I don't talk about evidence-based unless I know. So, I know people can exercise suppress, from your perspective.
Yeah, I think it can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it can. I think it's what you.
It can block thoughts, so it can. When people sometimes are grieving, they over-exercise because they don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
But I was just wondering whether on a central nervous system level does it suppress?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm a bit of a meathead, Al, so I'm more. I do it. I know the mental side of training more than the physiological side.
Yeah.
So I know for sure that there's been times where the gym has been a good avoidance tactic for me.
Yeah.
But I do also ask myself, well, what would I be doing if I wasn't using the gym as an avoidance tactic? Would I be boozing right now? Because I'm probably going to avoid. I'm probably going to avoid it.
Yeah.
Because if I was going to look at it and it was that easy, I'd look at it.
Yeah.
But I'll either drink, I'll either watch pornography, I can watch Netflix all day, I can take drugs, or I can go gym.
Yeah.
Okay, so pick your poison.
Yeah.
I'll go. The healthiest poison right now is the gym. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
So not to say that it's the best way or the right way, but you kind of know yourself after a while, don't you?
Yeah.
I know myself so well. If I don't go to the gym, I'm in trouble, man.
Yeah.
Because my head is so fucked up
that
if I don't go to the gym and let the demon out, And this is how I have it in my head. I'm like, Alex, you can go and play for an hour now. You know, that Alex that you suppress all day. You know, that one, I'm like, right, go and fucking play for an hour. Go and cause some trouble.
So you have got a good balance.
Well, it allows me to function and do things like this. And this stimulates my intellectual side.
Yeah, you're very reflective. So, and I guess we're not talking about everybody. I guess I have to be careful because I'm in the job.
Sure.
So obviously I see people who are struggling on a day-to-day basis. Millions of people aren't struggling. My brother has to remind me of that when I'm looking at the world. That, you know, there's millions of people struggling, and we will all struggle at some point in our lives. But I guess the way that we express ourselves as men is sometimes impacts. So I think about my friends, and they go to the Blues or the Villa, and they've been doing it for 30 odd years. And I used to take the piss. I used to say, who wants to go and sit in the cold watching that? But actually now I look at them, and they're still friends, and they still go to this football, and they still have a couple of beers, and they still express themselves. So in some ways that is happening.
Okay.
It's happening. So again, it goes back to single men living alone, sitting in the living room, not doing any of that stuff.
Do you now do things like that? Like got the
yeah,
football?
Socially I'm good. Social. But when we talk about this, I need to get my energy back up and things like that. Yes, I'm getting older. But yeah.
I went through this stage with football, and again, I think this was a dangerous place to be, where I was like, there's no point in football.
Oh, why?
Why? It's just 11 men running around trying to... Well, why are people getting so passionate about fucking football?
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, but you can do that about anything else.
Yeah.
You can go, well, why are you so passionate about this?
Yeah.
Why are you so passionate about that? Like, nothing really matters.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I got into that with football. I was like, yeah, what a waste of time that is. But it does allow people to express, and it gives them something to care about.
Yeah.
And community, you know, you're all in that stadium together cheering. It is that. I can see there's deeper levels to it.
Yeah.
But people will die over football.
It's core belief stuff.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Us versus them.
Yeah.
They're the enemy. We're together.
Yeah.
We will lay our lives down. And you hear people say, there was a program called Sunderland Till I Die.
Right.
Yeah. It was about hardcore Sunderland fans. And they're like, football is life.
Yeah.
And that is their God.
Yeah.
In Naples, in Italy, Maradona is there's more Maradona statues than Jesus.
Yeah.
He's God over there, and they actually refer to him as God.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's core belief level. That's why people can't change their football team.
Yeah.
No matter how bad they get, they can't change it because it's core belief.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. I couldn't change my football team.
Yeah.
Some people are like this with political parties too.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? You could even give them the evidence of like, actually, this party's policies are better. No. I'm a red.
Yeah.
I'm not a blue.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
It's tribal.
Yeah.
It's very tribal. And I guess men need that tribe to a degree. You know, that football, that... I never got it, but I get the fact that, you know, people do need it.
Okay.
And I think recent experiences I've had, I won't talk about them too much, but with men and mental health, is that we have to explore what you really well put is that paradox, and we have to explore it. We can't just put posters up and say men need to talk, because the poor blokes are sitting there saying who the fuck to, and what the fuck about, you know, because they're all right, but we just got to get them to understand that, you know, when a female meets a female, I'm not genderising it, but they're having a glass of wine, they're chatting about the day and what they've done. Men just have to get into a similar model.
Yeah. And I think, like I've talked about this before, who you talk to is vitally important.
Massively.
Because imagine you've been bottling something up for 10 years and then you decide to speak to your friend about it and your friend doesn't receive it very well, or they don't know what to say, or they brush it under the carpet, or they take the piss.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, you've got to be careful, you know. You've got to do it in a safe space, and you've got to learn how to listen too.
Yeah.
Because as guys, we want to fix. So, you know, if you come and tell me your problems, I'm like, I've got a solution for you, and you might not want the solution. No. You might just fucking listen to me.
Yeah. It is, and that's John Gray, Men Are For Mars, Women Are For Venus book, when he says the woman comes home, she said, I've had a really bad day. And she tells her husband, and the husband said, it's easy, you just need to do this, this and this. And she's thinking, I fucking know what to do. I just need you to listen. And I think we're getting there with men now as well. People just want to be listened to, want to be heard. And maybe not my generation as much now, you know, we've lived our lives, but I certainly think the younger generation, there's a lot of stuff at the moment being talked about from feminism as well, saying that we need to look after our young men. You know, there's a lady on Radio 2 talking about it. She's a very popular feminist, and she was, you know, she was just saying we need to look after our young men. And we pushed a lot for our ladies, told them to stand up for what they believe and fight, and you know they can be what they want to be. And she says, but we haven't done that for our young men. You know, we don't tell them about how good they are, and they, you know, be proud of yourself, stand up, lift your head up, put your shoulders back. So they're walking with their heads down.
With extreme feminism and extreme machoism, I think it's more a lot of internal conflict being expressed. Yeah. So there's a lot of feminists that have got issues with men for certain reasons, through what they've been through. Maybe their dad was just... Do you know what I mean? So we've got to be careful with any extreme ends of anything.
Absolutely.
Because if you think about this, why wouldn't women want more good men on the planet?
That's what she talks about. Yeah. She says,
you know... sons.
Yeah. In order to look after the female, we need to look after the male. But she also talks about, you know, men are more likely to drop out of school, men are more likely to have low education, men are more likely to take their lives, you know, so the stats, you know, men are more likely to end up in prison, men are more likely to take drugs and alcohol. So it's not looking good for that generation at the moment, statistically.
And what's interesting is this: when I was younger, statistically, it was like men of, I think it was 35 and under were more likely to cause suicide.
Yeah.
Then it was 40 and under.
Yeah.
Now it's like
45 to 55, isn't it?
Even 55. Yeah, it used to be really uncommon. You'd hear a guy in his 50s take his own life, and there's been 3 stories I've heard in the last few weeks about guys in their mid 50s. Yeah. The latest one I heard yesterday, you know, he's this guy's good friend, and this guy had no idea, but it wasn't impulsive either. He wrote a letter, planned it all out, and he said you would have never guessed, but he was 55, kids. You know, why is the age increasing? Like, what's going on that it's not men now who are 35 and older, it's men who are 55? Yeah. Like, it's crazy.
I thought about that quite a lot, because I do, yeah, it is a fact. And I don't know whether it's loss of meaning, Al. I don't know. Maybe because we are at 55, you would be like 75 a few years ago, different generations. So, you know, but why is it, you know, men are doing that, you know, at that age when people talk about the 50s probably be the best decade of your life, because you come to terms with who you are. You're not going to play for Villa anymore. You accept who you are. You accept your losses and your gains, and you should be starting to be at peace with yourself. But it's not happening.
Either that, or I've experienced in the opposite. I'm not at peace with myself. I'm angry at myself that I haven't done more.
Right.
You know, 38, and I kind of know that I haven't lived my best life.
Right.
And I said to Cara, I said, this is weird, but there's an internal voice that says, and you know you're not going to either.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Isn't that a fucking horrible, bleak outlook where you go, I kind of know I'm not going to show up at my best. But you said it brilliantly about picking your sacrifice. So when I watch Attenborough's program on Netflix about like climate and all this, you know, all the big global stuff, and then I hear 700,000 people killed themselves last year across the world. 700,000. When you chisel down all the problems, like, you can find problems in your community that you can actually make a difference in. Yeah. Which is kind of like the exciting prospect of like working with someone like yourself.
Yeah,
like,
we need to talk.
Yeah, there's so much struggling out there, Al. The only reason I could think that would be worthwhile me continuing on at a good level is to reduce some of that suffering for other people. But what else can you do with your life? Yeah. If you haven't got kids, and what do you do with yourself? Yeah. Just fucking work hard and go and buy a nicer watch. Yeah. Another jacket. Yeah.
No, and we know, don't we, from, you know, altruism and everything, to give is to receive. So there isn't anything better. Yeah. Which is why when, you know, these millionaire pop stars, you know, they suddenly have everything, but they've got nothing. So they go and save the trees in the, you know, the rainforest, or go over to, you know, which is great. You know, they're doing something, but it's because they've got to get something back. They've done all the making their money and chasing the dopamine. Yeah. And it's gone, no more dopamine. So
for sure.
You know, you only really get it from giving.
Yeah, I get that. And I think, I don't know how you would encourage men to avoid this, but we are, like, and especially in the self-development world, we do work so hard on ourselves and plot our goals and our financial security and our well-being that you can kind of forget there's a world bigger than you.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you would encourage someone when they're doing things like planning and goal setting, how they factor that in. You know, how do we connect to something bigger than ourselves? You know, how do we not allow our lives to be either success or failure based on the outcome of our own personal goals?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I guess we talk about value-driven goals. They've got to be, you got to value, they've got to be of value to you. So on a core belief level, really. If you're just chasing because you want to buy a nice car, there's nothing wrong with that, but you've got to understand that dopamine hit will go very quickly. In fact, probably before you've driven it off the forecourt, you know, it's gone completely. So you want to maintain a dopamine chase, you've got to make sure it's a long goal and you value it.
I read something recently that said the longest an achievement can stay with you is about 2 weeks. So this is why you can have or Tyson Fury.
That's interesting.
Something like that. Again, don't quote me on it.
No.
Who wins the heavyweight title,
Yeah.
right? Dream. Within 2 weeks, he's depressed and drinking like so much alcohol. It's unreal. But they reckon, that victory, like you always need something.
Yeah.
You can't live off past victories because
No.
they don't hang around in your system for too long.
No, they don't. Hubbard talks about that, the neuroscientist. So he says, you chase a goal, and as you're chasing it, the dopamine's being produced.
Uh-huh.
You get the goal, and there's a dip. It's never as good as a chase.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, then you have to stay with your misery for a bit. Don't go setting another goal. Stay with your misery, and then you'll start chasing another goal later. But you have to stay with your misery. I haven't been very good at that. I've been like, what's next? And then chasing again.
Exercise, Al.
Yeah, which it does come down, which is why you talk about, I mean, exercise and dopamine and serotonin and endorphin, it just ticks every box.
Cold showers.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried the cold showers?
No, but I was reading about them, and it's got a little bit of mixed review, hasn't it?
Yeah.
About, does it increase cortisol? Because I thought that's the last thing I need.
Yeah, well, apparently what it does is it's the fact that the pain is over that the dopamine is produced. So you're in the cold shower and it's pretty torturous. You're like, you're there and you go, oh my God, this is fucking freezing. Okay. And they reckon that the dopamine is released when the body comes back to its normal state. So you're like, oh, thank God the pain's over. And the dopamine goes above base level.
Okay.
That's what they reckon. But yeah, cortisol, adrenaline. But again, that could be healthy if
you're tired, you need some.
Well, we need some, right?
Yeah.
Exercise produces healthy amounts of adrenaline and such. But again, it's that balance thing, like we said, express versus suppress. Work versus recover.
Yeah.
It's those kind of things. Yeah. Like to have adrenaline is a good thing. Like, can you imagine if we didn't have any adrenaline or cortisol,
Yeah, well, low level cortisol is one of the worst diseases you can have.
Yeah. I guess what you don't want to do anything, do you?
Your body just dies, yeah.
You just want to sit down and sleep all day, right? So it's kind of like that same thing. But healthy amounts of cortisol and adrenaline through exercise is great. Cold showers are great. So doing those things for me, it's become as important as therapy. It's there to ensure that I can function in day-to-day world. It's there because again, one of the other factors of depression is immobility and pain.
Yeah,
people don't talk about this, but if you're 68 and you can't get off your couch because your knees are fucked, you're not living a very good life. You got to sit on your couch all day.
Yeah.
You're 68, you're retired. This is get outside and enjoy the world. That was always the theory from when you were young.
Yeah.
My mum and dad are 70 next year, and they're loving life because my dad's driving, they're out and about, they walk 5 miles. But if they were both fucked and had knee replacements and were 5 stone overweight and they just sat in and watched TV, guarantee on a cognition level, they wouldn't be where they're at.
Yeah.
So we've got to think about that too, but humans aren't very good at that, Al. They're not good at thinking 10 years ahead.
No.
We think about today. What's good today? That beer, that cigarette, that pornography, that Netflix show, that piece of chocolate.
And that's what Hubbard talks about. He's quite worried, actually. He said, as we've got richer and richer, but time's become less and less, we chase dopamine from bad things because we haven't got time to chase it from the good things. Or we've got the time, but we're too tired and we're too burnt out, and so what happens then is you get the quick dopamine because you can't be bothered to get the good dopamine.
True. I mean, I guess if let's just say to get a girlfriend now, you have to make a real effort, go out, socialise, have conversations with lots of different people to find the one woman that you're interested in. Or as a young guy, you could go on Tinder and watch some pornography and get your dopamine in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Like as a youngster.
Yeah.
Or no, as anyone, you can understand why people pick that. Totally not the right way to do it.
Yeah.
But you can get dopamine like that now, right?
Yeah.
It's accessible.
100%. And that's why in the lockdown, all those things doubled in use.
Do you think we're seeing a hangover of lockdown still?
Yeah, we're just about starting to come out of it.
Do you think?
Yeah, and because people always look physically, don't they? So physically, I can go into a shop and I don't have to stand 2 yards away from somebody, so it's all over. The brain doesn't work like that. The brain processes, and it takes a couple of years.
Wow.
You know, just like when you go through a bereavement, you don't have a funeral and say, "Oh, well, that's done." You then grieve, and that can take a couple of years.
Okay.
So we're processing it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we are.
Going back to that sacrifice thing, what would be an example of your sacrifice then? Let's just touch back on that. If we're talking sacrifice and giving guys maybe opportunities to think about their sacrifice and how they might want to increase levels of responsibility to live a more fulfilling life, what would be an example of yours?
Okay, so yeah, good question. So
sorry to put you on the spot.
No, it's good.
We could talk about this over Nando's more, but
right. So this is interesting. Responsibility, the level of responsibility you have has to equal the level of control you have. So generally speaking, so if you've got a 2-year-old child, you've got 100% responsibility, but you've probably got 99% control, apart from when he runs off. But you've got a lot of control.
Mm-hmm.
But the teenagers, you feel you've got 100% responsibility, no fucking control. So that's why teenagers are stressful for parents. So control and responsibility should be balanced. So one of the problems is, in order to have responsibility, you have to have control. And people don't like giving up control. So I've seen people very depressed, Al, who would probably rather die than give up control. They don't know that consciously. Mm-hmm. You'll know this with your exercise, your coaching that you do. You know, people are sitting there thinking, I fucking know what I need to do, but they just can't give up that control.
Okay.
And the human brain needs to feel in control.
But you can be in control, right?
Yeah.
Of input.
Yeah.
Outcome.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I think that's when that's when I think we would see more struggle, right?
Yeah.
Someone's fixated on how things need to work out.
Yeah.
Or expectations. The way I teach this is like, well, let's put all our energy into your input.
Yeah.
Let's not. So if you're trying to get in good shape, Al.
Yeah.
I'm not going to keep fixating on the scales with you and going,
right.
I'm going to fixate on, well, what are you doing every day, Al?
Process,
because that's the controllables, right?
Yeah.
We can control you moving your legs and going out for a walk.
Yeah.
We can control what you put in your mouth. We
Yeah.
can control how much of the water that you drink. But apart from that, we've got no control over those weighing scales. Like me and you can't determine what they're going to say tomorrow. Right. We can just determine the thing. So that's one way.
That's process versus outcome we talk about.
Yeah. But it's easy to get wrapped up in the outcome. I know I do this. I'm looking for a great outcome. Yeah. And I skip all the middle sometimes. And I know this. Yeah. It's frustrating. I know that it's process. This podcast, I've got a couple of people that are interested in sponsoring now. Ages ago, I could never dream about getting a sponsor. But really, when I look at it, what I've done is episode after episode after episode after episode after episode. That's it, Al. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's so unsexy. Yeah. Same with the gym.
Yeah, it's process.
Go to the gym. Go to the gym.
Yeah.
Go to the gym.
Yeah.
It's just that. It's that consistency.
Yeah.
It's just, if you know that up front, it's hard to convince yourself to do it if the payoff's going to come in 10 years.
Yeah. So why, I mean, your group is obviously, you know, you kick the buck, you're kicking against it. But why hasn't exercise industry focused more on mental health? It's focused on the physiology and looking good, but why isn't it focused on the mental health? Right.
That's ours.
So that's outcome.
I sold so many more. When I used to do 12-week physical transformations, I'd get clients coming through the door like that. Yeah. Yeah, because I could put a picture of a guy who's overweight and then in great shape. You look at that, boom, sold. Sign me up. Yeah. Trying to convince someone to do this for their mental health, there's no image that I can give you, Al. Okay. Do you know what I mean? I can't, I'm selling a concept. I'm like, oh, you're going to feel so much better. Yeah. Yeah. But if I show you a picture of, oh, you can look like this in 12 weeks. Yeah, okay, here's $2,000. Do you know what I mean? It's again, but it's that, like, give me the result. Give me the result. Yeah. It's a real surface level thinking. Yeah. But we're all guilty of it. Yeah. You know, consumerism is set up that way. We can get what we want pretty much now at the click of a button. You can find a fucking girlfriend on a dating app. Yeah. You can get a cost of coffee delivered to your house now. Yeah. You don't even have to go outside. No. So why would I do 2 years of work to improve my mental health? 2 years? Are you kidding me? Yeah. 2 years you want me to do any work before I notice a mental change?
A big change, yeah.
go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
And that comes nicely on to the fact that we don't know what we don't know. And so I've had so many people, 6'6" rugby players coming to me and say, do you know what, Al, I used to take the fucking piss out of people with depression. And I won't do that anymore. One guy once said, I'd rather be kicked on a rugby field in the head numerous times than feel like this. I had a lady this morning. She said long-term anxiety. And I said, you have to remember the level of anxiety you've had 2 million years ago, that would have been a tiger running at you. So don't put yourself down. It's hell. When you've got anxiety like that, metaphorically, that tiger's about to kill you. You've got morbid thoughts. You're going to die. It's a dark world that you're in. Because to have that level of anxiety 2 million years ago, you wouldn't be here. So that people just got to understand the level of despair that you go into when you go down those rabbit holes. Sure. But I don't think people will until they've experienced it, which is sad, but a fact of life.
I think it is a fact of life. Are you with Peterson's theory about if you're somebody with high levels of anxiety, the only way is to turn and face the things that scare you?
Yeah, avoidance is not good for anxiety, but you have to do it with compassion. So sometimes when I teach cognitive behavioural therapy, people go, oh, so you just face your fears? And I'm like, no, you do it gradually, you do it with support. So if if your fear is going out, social anxiety, you wouldn't take yourself to a nightclub, it would overwhelm you, you'd collapse and you'd never go out again. So you have to go to the shop first, maybe with a friend, and then do it gradually, and it must be applied with compassion.
Is there a danger that as a therapist you can have too little or too much compassion? Is there such a thing as too much compassion?
Massively, yeah. We can overprotect, yeah. We can overprotect. And it took me years to learn that, and years to sort of say to somebody, and you can use humour, and I'll sort of say, this is going to fucking hurt. This is going to hurt. There's no way around that pain. Yeah. But we're going to do it. We're going to support you to do it. And, this is the outcome, and I'll scientifically prove it to them that the anxiety will come down.
Yeah, because it's Paul Bloom who did the book. Was it Against Empathy?
Yeah.
Now, I haven't read that, but I'm guessing the title suggests that empathy is not always a good thing.
Yeah, what he was saying is, typical Paul Bloom, he just threw something in the pot to say, does it exist? Do we empathise with people we don't like? No.
That's so fact.
Yeah,
I noticed it myself. Since
we're like that. Fuck him, and you think, well, actually, that guy's got pain. Why am I not feeling his pain? Yeah, because I don't like him. Yeah. And what he really argues for is compassion. So he says, if somebody's, and they've done behavioural experiments, haven't they? When there was a guy bleeding on the curb, and there's people walking past going, "Oh, this is terrible," but then walking off. So they showed empathy, but it didn't help the guy. And then a guy came and picked the guy up and got him into an ambulance, and that was compassion. So compassion is something you do. Empathy is just an emotion that you often just put on.
How does someone develop high levels of compassion?
I think you've got to. It's cognitive. You just do the right thing. You practice doing the right thing.
But if you're not a compassionate person at heart, does that mean you're not a compassionate person at heart, or does that mean there's something to go away and work on?
There's something to go away and work on. Anybody, because once you start to get compassionate, you get a feedback loop. So if people can learn that actually helping that guy felt good for you, they're more likely to do it again.
What about suffering? Do you think that can help increase your levels of compassion? So if you suffer, if you go to the pits, if you feel depression, if you lose your mum, you feel that, therefore can maybe get an inkling into what other people feel. Yeah. Do you believe that?
Yeah, 100%.
I never put this link together with resilience and compassion.
Yeah.
Like by doing the difficult things, it's made me more understanding.
Yeah.
And supportive of those going through the same journey.
Yeah.
Like I can't experience something now that I can't tap into what you're feeling if I haven't been through something similar.
Yeah.
This is why they have things like widow groups, right? It's because oh, you lost your partner too.
Yeah.
Maybe you can understand how I feel a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is probably why men's circles are quite powerful. Oh, you feel like that too?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God, so do I.
Yeah.
And that's I think where you can develop compassion.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing when you what does he talk about? He talks about a surgeon, doesn't he? And he says you don't want a surgeon leaning over you who's empathic. You want a compassionate surgeon. You don't want his empathy because he'll kill you. So he doesn't need to care. You want him not to care. You want him just to be compassionate to do a bloody good job. And I think what you just touched on something now really important about men meeting men. And I see this a lot. Somebody will go back to their department and I'll say, look, you've got to tell your manager you're struggling, mate. He doesn't understand. He thinks you just don't care about your job. You're disengaging. You can't concentrate. Maybe he's an engineer and he's just made some mistakes, and they're sort of thinking, do we put him on a performance plan? But this guy's been here 30 years. He's really good, but suddenly he doesn't give a shit. He's lost his dad. But I said, you got to go back and talk to your manager about how you're feeling. And it's hard, and I said, but he doesn't read minds, don't go blaming managers all the time. They don't read minds. So he goes back. The manager turns around to him and says, yeah, I've been on citalopram as well when I lost my mum. I struggled a few years ago. Suddenly this guy's like, fucking hell, so I'm not the only one. And 1 in 4 people, certainly 1 in 4, 1 in 8 took an antidepressant. So statistically, 1 in 4 people are going to have anxiety or depression at some point. So the odds are in your team when you're talking, somebody will go, I know what you feel. I felt that anxiety. I've had a panic attack, and it's horrible. So what you're doing with the Better Man and everything as well, it's about pulling people together.
Yeah, we're still working out inside the group, the balance between tough love, compassion, getting on with things, because there's an argument for all of the above.
Yeah.
There is a genuine time out where you do have to get on with life, because you don't have a choice whether it's tough or not.
No.
It is tough. So you kind of know that. So there's only so much
but
analysing.
If you don't mind me asking, when you were in your dark, the dark place, the not so good place, can you remember how difficult it was to pull your socks up, type of thing? Yeah.
And I can feel it now, Al.
Yeah.
There's part of me that knows I should be doing something that I'm not doing.
Right.
I can't explain it yet. I can't articulate it. But like I say, if I'm aware that there's all this suffering, but throughout my day I look and I've been to Costa and done some reading, I've done a little laptop work, and I get home and I'm like, there's something I haven't done today. I can sacrifice more for others. Right. So if my day is just about me, I end up in that dark place anyway.
Right.
But I can remember, and I can't remember too, because when you're losing the plot, it's hard to piece together and go back to that stage.
It is very hard.
But there was no talking to me at that point, for sure. That was the first time I've kind of and I can understand why people kill themselves now.
Yeah.
Because you hear people say, oh, it's cowardice, it's selfish. I'm like, I don't see it like that.
No.
To think that someone's in so much pain, that they'd take their own life versus being able to deal with it.
Yeah.
But reality is a difficult thing to deal with. I find reality such a crazy thing.
Yeah. Well, it's your reality, isn't it? It's not,
That's a good point.
And when people, they take their lives because they don't want to die, but they just don't want to live.
No.
And so it's, do you want tea or coffee again? It's the brain's making a decision based on what it doesn't want. And I don't want that life, therefore I'll have this one. And it's a so I guess your thing about compassion is when somebody's in that rabbit hole, you're very compassionate. As they start to come out the rabbit hole, we have a sort of a saying that you put the pressure on, and you start to pass them more and more responsibility for their health. So when they're in the dark rabbit hole, they can't take responsibility. We need to help them. As they start to come out of it, we start giving them more responsibility back.
There's a curveball for you, Al.
Yeah.
When I was at that point, there was a woman in my life, and she was amazing. She'd hold me, she'd hug me, she'd look after me. However, I do look back now and think, well, I wonder how I would have responded to a little bit of Alex, you've been like this for 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
You've been drinking. Yeah. You're eating Greggs for breakfast.
Yeah.
You're hiding. The curtains are shut. You can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
You're going to have to show up.
That's a really good point.
Do you know what I mean? Done with love, Al. Not fucking hell, Alex. But done with a bit of this isn't okay anymore. Yeah. You've had 3 weeks. We'll let you off with that. I just wonder how I'd respond.
No, it's a really interesting point. I've had a couple of times this time. I use this example when I'm teaching. I've had a chap came to see me years ago. Lovely guy, got on really well with him, and he's sitting there and he said, "You know what, Al? My wife's told me she's going to leave me if I continue with this." And I said, "She will." And he went, "Fucking hell, that doesn't help." And I said, "No, but I'm being serious. Your wife's got thoughts, behaviours and emotions as well. Mm-hmm. And her thoughts are, I'm losing my husband. He's not the man I married. He's not coming back from this. So she's going to start grieving for you. So she's trying to give you a kick up the arse. She's got no other angle to go." Mm-hmm. And it worked for him.
Did it?
Yeah, it pulled him out. So you are right. You can have too much of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's all right looking back on reflection now.
Yeah.
You know, because I can do it with a bit of a logical state now. But I don't know what the answer is. That's what I mean. There's always a sweet spot. There's always somewhere in between, because there's a place for tough love. And maybe it's an individual response. But at some point, how much empathy is too much? How much compassion is too much?
Yeah.
When do I need a kick? When do I need a cuddle? All these things.
And it's been written about in medical ethics for many years, and probably psychotherapy, and how much could you end up keeping people there if you're not careful? Sure.
I don't know how you do what you do, Al, because obviously you're responsible for the safety of the people in your sessions, but you've got your own life. Like psychologists and psychotherapists, they're humans,
Yeah.
I always get guilty when I'm in a session with a therapist, because I'm like, I guarantee you've got your own shit going on too, mate. And you want to hear me fucking ramble on about mine. I'm like, fucking hell, could you not have picked an easier job, mate? Like, I really have, talk about compassion and empathy.
Yeah.
I have a lot for the person on the end of my session, my therapy.
Just remember how good you feel when you see one of your guys or ladies look good and feel good, and their self-esteem is higher than it was when they met you, and their self-worth, and how that makes you feel. And it's the same with us. The reward outweighs, by far, for me, outweighs the battering, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I think anybody who works in a humanitarian service, if the reward doesn't outweigh the battering, you get out. Because you're not.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I can say this, and you probably will have to be careful, because it's your job. But you must get drained of energy, whether you want to or not, when you're dealing with people who are suffering.
Yeah, everybody does.
Must do.
Yeah, there's a therapist drift, and there's a therapist burnout, but the things that we all should be careful of, because it's an emotional job. But so is being a police officer, being a firefighter, doing what you're doing. The journey you're taking on at your age, you're probably going to be doing the next 30 years in some form. So you have to be a bit careful as well, because I can tell that you want to grow it. You want to start looking at community care, and how do we, rather than seeing one person, how do we see a community with this kind of stuff? And it's brilliant, by the way.
Thank you. Hopefully I'll learn how to break the code one day. How do we get more men off their ass to do something good?
Yeah.
Imagine if everybody just chipped in 5% to make the community better.
Yeah.
Just imagine how clean the place would be, the homeless people supported.
Yeah.
Kids who were in homes where they can't afford to put 3 meals on the table.
Yeah.
Imagine if every guy just went, okay, well, what can we do to help?
Yeah.
Because their life would get better then. So their strugglings and sufferings, it's like they can be diminished a little bit when you find something bigger than your own cause.
Yeah.
And whether I'm being unrealistic, then that's a dream. Can you imagine if every guy in my local town fucking, made the place look good, and all spent one day of the year like planting flowers in the gardens around the villages. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, is that a realistic expectation?
I think we've moved a long way towards it. You go back to the 70s and 80s, they weren't great decades, Yeah,
but was community stronger then, Al?
I don't know if it was.
You don't think?
I don't know. It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting times. I think. Well,
more people kill themselves now, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of violence then in those days, but that was because the community didn't feel it was supported.
Okay.
Riots and things like this.
But we see riots now.
Yeah, we do actually, and the individualism now is something that's definitely rife.
Yeah. Do you suffer with any of that?
Yeah, I think the individualism it's sneaked up on me. There's no doubt about it.
Sneaks up on me too, man.
Yeah, it's all about me, and you just think, But
I went on my Insta page the other day, and I was like, "There's a picture of me, me, and me." I was like, "Oh, fucking hell, I better put some of the better." Do you know what I mean? I was just like, you get caught out.
Yeah, you do get caught out.
You know what I mean?
It's a nice feeling,
It is, but part of me also knows, like you spoke about this, like I always believe that sitting in the centre is good. So if you become too grandiose, then like you will get pulled back down, and massively. You should get pulled back down. This is why when we meet up, we do our wins for the months, and we celebrate each other's wins, but we look at our losses too, because I never want any of my gang to get ahead, because some of the guys in the better man are on a real good roll.
Good, excellent.
Right. Yeah, which is great. Yeah. But I always there's a part of me that goes, but we're going to humble you today too.
Yeah.
Don't get too ahead of your own kind of game. Like you're not as good as you think, and you're not as bad as you think either.
Yeah.
And that keeps me grounded.
Yeah, Adam Grant talks about the humble narcissist. So what he says is, because narcissist is a bit of pop psychology now. In my day, you'd never use that term. It was a bad term to use, but it's all over Facebook now. But he talks about there's nothing wrong with being. We're all narcissistic to a point. The brain only cares about the brain. My brain cares about my brain. So he sort of says there's nothing wrong with being a narcissist. We've all got narcissistic traits. Only 1% of people have a narcissistic personality disorder, and you don't want to meet them. Okay. But what he says is, on the other side of it, you've got humbleness. So it's somewhere in the middle. There's a humble narcissist. Uh-huh. And that's a good place to be. And that's probably the sweet spot.
Yeah, I think so. Like if I kept saying to you every time I saw you, oh, you're just the best, mate. I mean, look at you, that dapper shirt. You look fucking amazing. You're the best, you're the best psychotherapist I've ever met. Yeah. And every day, boom, boom, boom. I don't think that's. And if you did that to yourself too. Yeah, you can imagine. And this is another link back to compassion. I don't think you can be compassionate if you're grandiose.
No, impossible.
If you're like, look at me, look at what I do. Yeah. Look at this watch, look at this house, look at this car, boom, I'm the man. Yeah. You compassion that. You want to talk about crushing compassion? Yeah. Do that. Yeah. Remind yourself, I was depressed. Yeah. I was 3 stone overweight. Yeah. I had no purpose. Yeah. I used to watch pornography all the time. Yeah. And I need to do that. Yeah. I need to suffer too. I need to feel depressed like I have this week. Yeah. Otherwise I might have cured it. I'm cured. Yeah. I don't feel depressed anymore.
So really, it's your brain just righting itself a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. I've said that to people with depression. When they come out of it, they're almost elated. Then they have a bad month a year later, and I say, it's just your brain. It's just reminding you where you've been, checking out the balance. Yeah. You're not depressed. In fact, next month will be a load better. And it comes back up. But people panic, especially when they've had depression, because they're like, oh, fuck, I'm going back into that place. And I
think that's important now that you mentioned it. I'm really glad you brought that up. Just kind of being cool, and accepting it and go, this will pass. Yeah, I'm not going to do things to contribute the depression. I'm not going to start drinking. But I'm in that space now. I'm like, okay, you've been here before, Al. Yeah, it's gonna leave you at some point. Yeah, that was a great thing about sleeping next to the river when I did the I kept flowing, and I know this sounds fucking crazy, Al, but the river kept saying to me, everything will pass. Yeah, everything passes. Good times pass, bad times pass. Pain passes, happiness passes. So I was like, that was quite freeing. Yeah. So if you are in that point where you're like, my life sucks, I feel like shit. Yeah. It will, and I don't know whether that's linked back to suicide, where people try and rush that process. Yeah,
I just want to bounce back too quick.
I just want this out. I want this out of me. Yeah. And maybe we feel like that we're stuck in that forever, because depression can do that to you. Yeah. You're like, this is my life. Yeah. This is my life now. Yeah,
if you let go of the impermanence of it, you're in trouble, because you got hopelessness and helplessness, and that's where self-harm lives.
What's next for you, Al?
The exercise, to be fair. I mean, I've talked to you about it, and I've moved now. I've got no excuse now. I've moved. I've joined the gym, been a couple of times.
Isn't your girlfriend's boyfriend a PT? Is that right? Did I get that wrong?
I know a few PT people, So
when are you going to start training?
I don't know whether should I go for that or. And this is probably about control.
Well, do you know what you're doing?
Probably not.
No, and probably not means you don't know what you're doing, right? Yeah. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with not knowing what you're doing, because my theory is, unless you've been shown how to do things properly over and over and over again, if you've got the finances, go and get a PT. Right. One, you don't have to think about it. 2, it's an appointment. If it's an appointment, it means
I don't let them down. Yeah. And I think that might be my fear, my threat a little bit. Once I start this journey, I can't fuck it up.
What do you mean?
It's like, so in life, I always like to finish something. If I'm doing something, I want to do it properly. And me and Paul talk about it, my colleague, and he always says, we're frightened of committing, Alan, because we think if we fail, it'll devastate us.
But when you do commit...
But yeah, so we've got a lot of evidence that when we
Well, why don't you just commit then?
Yeah, because it is, and I don't want to do it for any other reason but energy.
Okay, well, here's a good question and a reframe. Are you ever going to regret getting into the best health possible?
No.
It's a no-brainer for me. Yeah. There's millions of upsides. Yeah. 1 or 2 downsides. You might have to give up a few hours a week to go and train. Yeah. Go and do it, Al.
Yeah. I promise I will. It's a deal.
Yeah, and get good at it. That's another thing. You know, people want to be motivated. The best way to become motivated is to see progression in a certain area. Yeah. So if you get the expertise of someone who knows what they're doing, they can make you better than you can make yourself. Yeah. Therefore, it's more enjoyable by default. Yeah. You know. Just
out of interest, I know we've run out of time, but just out of interest,
no, right.
Could you exercise quite a high level?
Yeah.
So don't you just have a downer? Wouldn't you just come down?
What do you mean?
So you get a hit, your dopamine hit, when you said, you're going for that hour and a half.
No.
And does that stay? It stays up and
No.
it comes down slowly.
Yeah, but it brings me to center.
Oh right, okay.
Is what it does.
Yeah.
It doesn't take me down. So energy, exercise. The way I would look at it, does it give energy or take energy? What it gives.
Gives all the time.
Yeah. So yes, throughout the day, I do like start to diminish in energy.
Right.
But it's because of the exercise that brings me back down to center point.
Yeah.
Whereas if I didn't exercise, Al, I might start with a little bit of energy throughout the day.
And you just go down.
Yeah. So no, it's a sweet balance for me. I sauna a lot. I steam room a lot. I cold shower a lot. I sleep well. So I try and recover as hard as I work.
Yeah.
But there are other benefits. Like I said to you, I like to let the demon out of the cage when I exercise.
Yeah.
That's what I like to do. So forget the physical benefits for a minute, which are great. But the fact that I can give that dark side permission to go and be a fucking crazy person.
Yeah.
Like people look at me in the gym like I'm some kind of fucking lunatic. I've got these big headphones on that basically kind of say fuck off and don't talk to me.
Yeah.
Once people get to know me, they're okay. I'm
Yeah.
okay. But I'm like, yeah, it's permission.
Yeah.
I think we need that. Like,
So somewhere along the line, we've got to get a point across about activity and exercise and mental health a lot better than what we've done.
well, why would you not start with the controllables for mental health?
Yeah.
Like, if anyone's suffering with depression, and when I say depression, by the way, I'm not talking clinically
no,
in
I
bed.
get that.
Yeah, I'm just talking about, let's say, miserable guy.
Yeah. We would say mild to moderate.
Right. Let's say mild. Let's say somebody who could train.
Yeah.
If they really work. Yeah. Why would you not start there? Like, this isn't my opinion, by the way. There's so much data that exercise is equally as good as medication, if not better.
Yeah.
So for me, it's completely illogical to skip that
Yeah.
and not look at it and not. I think we like to undervalue it because it's so simple, but it requires effort, Al.
Yeah.
It requires effort.
And it needs to be sold better because a lot of people with mental health problems haven't exercised for the very reason. So they are out of shape, or they're very anxious. They don't want to be laughed at the gym, or or they've got low self-esteem and they don't want to walk around the gym. So it's got to be done maybe a little bit differently somehow.
I can't argue with that. There's a lad I coach who used to go to the gym at 1 a.m. because he would be fear be seen.
Right.
So he knew the importance of the gym. Can you imagine that fucked him up though? Because he was getting back at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Knackered. You're right. And there's a lot of people I see down at the gym. And again, like, I do judge because I'm a human, but they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I can tell they're not going to continue coming because they don't know what they're doing. And I feel really, like I say, I feel a lot of compassion for them because I'm like, if only you were shown.
Yeah.
And then that for me is the missing link.
Okay. That makes
but
sense.
it's responsibility on two fronts: the fitness industry, more the individual.
Yeah.
So like for your example, like I'll go and have 3 sessions a week.
Yeah.
It'd be like me coming to you and wanting therapy, but me trying to self therapy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It just wouldn't make sense. You'd be, why don't you go and speak to a really good therapist once a week?
Yeah. Do you think they could be pulled together? Do you think
Yeah.
you could? Yeah. So you could, because sometimes people will come to me and they'll go, and I think, well, I know fuck all about exercise. So you need to talk to somebody who knows about exercise, and you could talk about somebody, me, I know about the head bit.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow that could be pulled together.
Well, this is what I had years ago. So back in the day, I had me, Tony Summers, and a lady called Jordana. She was a nutritionist. Tony was a counsellor. I was health and fitness.
Right.
The mistake I made was I made everybody that signed up for the transformation see all 3 of us. Some people didn't want to see Tony.
No. Yeah.
Whereas what my concept is now is more like a university or an education where someone comes through our doors and we go, do you know what, mate? You would really benefit from 5 sessions with Dovey right now.
Yeah.
Or do you know what you need? You need some structure and routine in your training. Or do you know what I mean? Just like, okay, mate, what do you need?
Yeah.
So maybe you do some kind of like, I've created this 100 questionnaire out to identify what I believe someone needs.
Right.
You can't fix everything at once, right? But yeah, I think there's a big space in the market now for that.
Yeah.
Of like, we are experts in men's health.
Yeah.
And you have your individual people in that leading it. Because I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know.
Yeah.
I don't know much at all, Al. I know some basic things that I'm going to.
Yeah. You're well read, and so you've got.
Yeah, but what I mean is, I'm not going to pretend that I'm the saviour that can help any man that walks through the door.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been in the industry how long?
36 years.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I can be an Al Dovey. I just can't.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be. I've got my thing that I'm good at.
Yeah.
But imagine that.
But then we're not experts on, you know, the habit forming side that you can do, and
that's what I'm good at.
Habit,
routine, discipline.
Yeah, what we sort of run out after we say you need to exercise. That's that bit end of session. You know, we explain to them some of the benefits, but to actually take them into the habit forming side, that's coaching. That's
You're right.
a whole different ball game.
Yeah, there is a skill to creating habits.
Yeah, massively.
It's more simple but more complex than people think.
Yeah.
It's very simple, but there are some rules that you can't avoid.
Yeah.
For example, remembering to go to the gym is a terrible strategy, or trying to fit it in.
Right.
If you say, "Oh, I'm going to work out," and that's it, and you go, I'll fit it in," you won't fit it in.
No.
You won't. I won't fit therapy in either. I needed to see Aidan at 11 a.m. every Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise I see my mum and dad every Thursday now.
Yeah.
It's not mum and dad will grab coffee when we've got time, because I'll never have fucking time.
No, my brother's like you. He's very habitual.
You have to be.
Yeah.
Because life becomes so busy.
Yeah.
That's why I said to my mum and dad, put it in the diary. Don't even ask me anymore. Just show up at my house on Thursday.
That's brilliant.
It has to be done now.
Yeah.
Because already I'm like, I've got this to do. I've got that to do.
Yeah.
You know your own patterns after a while.
Yeah.
So if you haven't mastered the gym now, you ain't gonna.
No.
So go and get some help.
Yeah. No, it's a good thing. I will do, seriously.
Yeah.
And I think that's where therapy overlaps with doing cognitive and behaviour. You know, there's got to be a team approach. Then you talk about the community and that, and that's where it's going to start.
Yeah.
You know, because at the moment you've got, I'm going to go and see Alex and look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or I'm going to see Alan because I'm feeling depressed. And you're like, well, they actually connect.
Mm.
They actually do connect. And you might not need to see me once you've got your habits in place. You know?
Yeah. The good thing about exercise is no one can argue that it's good for you.
No.
That it's not good for you.
No.
So we know that. So I get frustrated sometimes with the therapy wall, because I'm like, why are you overlooking the very basics that you know you need? Yeah. Lockdown was a great example. If we take away someone's ability to go outside, vitamin D, and the ability to exercise, and the ability to communicate with loved ones, you're going to get depressed people.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we need to do to encourage people not to be depressed? Put all those back in.
Yeah, spot on.
We've got to go there, man.
Yeah.
People want to go all complex. I'm like, well, let's do them. Peterson says this.
Yeah.
If you think you're depressed, okay, well, why don't we make sure that you're speaking to someone once a week, exercising, eating well. Yeah. If you're still depressed 3 months after, then we've probably got a problem.
On. And we've done that. The therapy world's done that. We have been guilty of overcomplicating something. And, you know, you look at the SEEDS model: social contact, learning, education, exercise, diet and sleep. Mm-hmm. And we should be focused on them before we do anything else. Mm-hmm. And if there's something else then we focus on it. You don't do it the other way around.
Yeah.
You know. So.
Last question for you before we head off to Nando's.
Yeah.
I'm excited for your first Nando's trip.
First Nando's, never done Nando's.
How you like chicken?
Yeah, I do.
Are you a chips or rice man?
Rice.
Okay. And then a bit of veg on the side, do you reckon?
Yeah.
In fact, we're better after. We just spoke about health. We'll get some nice broccoli. What do they call it? Stemmed broccoli or something?
Right.
Horrible, Al, but you'll eat it. It's good for you. So what do you need to work on now in order to become what you would consider like a better man?
Yeah, I think...
Asked you this last time.
Work's going really well. I'm really enjoying my work and everything. The exercise, definitely got to get into a routine. It's routine, Alex. I have a shit routine. I made my friends talk about it, and I remember laughing at people who had routine. When I was young, people would be really, I do this, I do it. I'm thinking, fuck up, you know. And as you get older, without routine, you're doomed.
Okay. Why do you rebel against routine?
Don't know. I always have.
Do you feel like it takes away freedom?
I feel like it controls me rather than, but it actually gives you more control.
Gives you a lot more control and freedom. Why don't you pick the routine you want?
See, I think I've never done it. I've always just jumped to what maybe work, or I've jumped to, I'll go out Wednesday. We'll have this Thursday. You know, instead of thinking, no, this is what I do on a Wednesday. You know, it's like, well, what are we going to do tonight? And you're thinking, just get some stuff regularly in the diary. And I've got to do it now. It's getting to a point of pick your sacrifice. It's getting to a point where if we don't do it, and Paul's my car, we're going to be in trouble.
Can you not construct a diary that you want versus one that you think you should?
Yeah, I mean, the best place of my life to do that. And so there's no excuses.
Okay. I can help you with this.
Okay.
This is what I'm really good at. We always structure the diaries for the men inside the group: personal values first, business values second.
Okay.
So if you really say, and this is where we test your values, if you go, my kids are the most important thing in my life, okay, when are you seeing them? Yeah. And when you're with them, are you with them or you're on your laptop? Yeah. So I go through now, Al, this is how so if you imagine my diary is a big white open space, I go Thursdays, mum and dad. Fuck work. Yeah. I'm not right. Gym every morning. because personal value, you know,
Yeah.
if I haven't got my mental health, my physical health, I'm done. Saturday friends. Okay, so what does that leave me with? So, and that's when I put my business commitments in.
Yeah.
I don't do all business and then go, well, what's left for me and my family?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy done. It's not like I say, it's not a criticism. Like, it's easily done. But it'd be great if you went, okay, what's really important to me?
Yeah.
My daughter, my friendships, my study.
Yeah.
Let's put that in the diary, and then boom, here's my work.
Let's see what's left.
Yeah,
and there'll be a lot left. I mean, the work.
There'll be loads left.
Yeah. I've got that. I've overanalyzed it to a point of not doing it.
Okay.
So any help you can give me, I'm happy to show you the diary, and you work through Monday to Friday or Saturday, Sunday with me.
Yeah. Well, I just think you're a selfless guy. You've probably been so busy helping everybody and doing sessions.
It does take over a bit, yeah. But it'd be things like, you know, I could happily see Molly and Doug and all them or whatever on a Wednesday night, and if that was in every Wednesday, it's going to make my life easier and probably theirs.
Makes them feel so special too.
Right.
My mum and dad love it.
Yeah, it's amazing that is what you've done.
They feel like they're important.
Yeah.
Because you can vocalise what you care about, or you can show people what you care about.
And you'll find out if you try to change it.
How many people talk out?
How important it is.
How many people talk and do nothing?
Yeah. Lots.
Yeah, guilty.
Yeah.
You know, I really want this. I really want. Fucking prove it.
Yeah.
Show me.
Yeah, 100%.
Show me. So if you go, mum and dad are important. Prove it.
Yeah, put it in the diary. Been fantastic as usual.
Mate, thanks so much. Like, you can tell I'm hyper as hell when I know Al Dovey's coming into the building. I always get excited, and thank you. You've been like a constant support, a constant source of inspiration for me and the guys inside the Better Man.
Always there for you all.
Whenever we do the trainings, they get excited and they love it. That burnout diagram that you had.
Yeah, well, it was good for me as well.
The guys have all printed it off.
Periodisation.
They love it. So keep up the good work. Hopefully one day we'll work together too.
Yeah, definitely, mate.